This was a white lash. This was a white lash against a changing country. It was a white lash against a black president in part. And that's the part where the pain comes.
Hey, Pat Ryerke here, also known as the Patriarchy. Man, the media is pissed off at Trump, or Trump is pissed off at the media, I suppose. But if you haven't heard the story, which, I don't know, you're living under a fucking rock, there was this dossier that came out that supposedly said that Trump was compromised by Russia, and it had all this information in it that he was basically, being groomed by Putin for several years, and Putin had compromising information on him that he was going to use against Trump, I guess, which would be like some Manchurian candidate shit, you know. Anyway, they went to CNN and New York Times and all these news affiliates, and nobody reported on it. Now, CNN did talk about it, but they did say it was unverified, unsubstantiated evidence. Here's the weird thing, like, I thought that when you're a journalist that you couldn't just release evidence like that if it didn't have a couple sources and if it wasn't verified. But I guess CNN. Here's some New York Times talking about it a little bit. I have a couple articles to get information out of the way, and then we'll talk about my issues with this, because I'm going to come in here and try not to be inclined towards the left or the right on this, because I think both sides are biased, and I think both sides are handling this bad. I am worried about how soft Trump is on Russia. I don't like how soft he is on Putin and Russia. I think that's a little odd. However, I also don't like the fact that whenever there's any little bit of rumor or information, the media and the left completely jump on it and want to jump to the conclusion that Trump is with Russia, basically, to take out America, I guess. I don't know what the theory is. Okay. BuzzFeed News becomes the center of a swirling debate over journalistic ethics on Tuesday after its decision to publish a 35-page document carrying explosive but unverified allegations about the ties between the Russian government and President-elect Donald J. Trump. The document, a dossier prepared by a former British intelligence officer hired by Mr. Trump's political opponents, had been circulating among high-ranking politicians and some journalists since the fall. Intelligence officials recently presented a 2-page summary of the allegations to Mr. Trump and President Obama, CNN reported on Tuesday. So CNN talked about this first, but they didn't give any details. But CNN declined to include the specific allegations contained in the dossier, such as a collusion between Mr. Trump's team and the Russian operatives, saying that its journalists could not independently verify them. Roughly an hour later, BuzzFeed, in a break from typical journalist practice, posted the document that fully detailed the unverified allegations to which CNN has alluded. BuzzFeed News is publishing the full document so the Americans can make up their own minds about allegations about the president-elect that have circulated at the highest levels of the U.S. government, BuzzFeed wrote. Ben Smith, BuzzFeed editor-in-chief, declined to comment beyond the article, which carried the bylines of 3 BuzzFeed reporters. But in a memo to his staff, Mr. Smith offered a further explanation about why the site had published the document. Our presumption is to be transparent in our journalism and to share what we have with our readers. Mr. Smith wrote, "We have always erred on the side of publishing. In this case, the document was in a wide circulation at the highest levels of American government and media. Publishing this document was not an easy or simple call, and people of goodwill may disagree with our choice." Mr. Smith added, "But publishing the dossier reflects how we see the job of reporters in 2017. This is to say, I assume here just to say that we can report whatever the fuck we want if it's bad information on Donald Trump. And here lies the issue with this. Let's say something bad does actually happen. Donald Trump actually does something bad. This will be a boy cried wolf situation that the media is going to keep pushing every story about Donald Trump, these fake hate crimes which we keep debunking, or, every time there's any kind of little tidbit here. I mean, all we have here is that there's some MI6 agent, and I guess John McCain wanted to get this information out there too. And, and don't get me wrong, there's something to question here, but there was no proof of this. There was spelling errors in the document, and a lot of it didn't add up. Like, they were trying, CNN at one point said that Michael Cohen, I think his name, Michael Cohen, was in Russia. And then he could show that he was never in Russia. He said, "I've never been in Prague in my life," and he hadn't been. So that was confusing. Why were they saying that this guy went over there, Trump's lawyer, and then we found out it was someone else? But CNN acted like it was Trump's lawyer. And then BuzzFeed released this, and it just caused this huge media spin, and then gave Trump an advantage to go, shit on the media. Because that's exactly what he could go do in his press conference, which I'll say for the very end here. I mean, it's hilarious. He calls CNN fake news. And he doesn't answer the question. Now, is CNN fake news? CNN does report stuff that's true sometimes, and sometimes it's fake, but they're biased. They're definitely left-leaning, and were for Hillary Clinton during the election. And then that's the problem. Journalistic ethics seem to be come and go depending on the story, or what is truth and not truth seems to become a subjective term all of a sudden. The New York Times was still talking about this, even if they're saying here that it wasn't, real or not, right? They're saying here the reports by CNN and BuzzFeed sent other news organizations, including the New York Times and Washington Post, scrambling to publish their own articles, some of which included generalized descriptions of the unverified allegations about Mr. Trump. By late Tuesday, though only BuzzFeed had published the full document. BuzzFeed's decision, beside its immediate political ramifications for a president-elect who is to be inaugurated in 10 days, was sure to accelerate a rolling debate about the role and credibility of the traditional media in today's frenetic, polarized information age. See, that's the thing. The country's not trusting the media because we saw how biased you were, how you would not report on anything going on with Hillary Clinton, yet you would jump on anything relating to Donald Trump. And now this just feels desperate, and we're getting to the end here. Like, you guys are trying to get anything you can cling on to keep Donald Trump out of the White House. And it's scary because we don't know how much we can believe you. What's more Orwellian, the media or Trump? I don't trust anyone. Don't get me wrong. I think Trump's very flawed, but I don't trust the media at all either. There's really no middle ground here. It's tough. I do like New York Times' suggestion that you get somebody who's out of the loop here, and who tries to be objective and look at the information and come to a conclusion. But still, the fact that BuzzFeed released this and people on Twitter are already acting like it's complete truth. I mean, I saw Patton Oswalt again talking about, it's Sallow and the 120 Days of Sodom, that Pasolini film. And it's like, it's... If we're going to start doing jokes now, it's going to become widespread information, that this idea that Trump had prostitutes piss in a hotel in a room that the Obama stayed in. One, if that happened, I hope that happened because that's fucking hilarious that Trump had prostitutes piss somewhere the Obama stayed. But who gives a fuck? But beyond that, there's been no proof yet. We've had no evidence to show that Trump is compromised by Russia at all. We know that Russia may have tried to get information on Donald Trump to use against him, but that just makes sense. He's going to be the president. And there's a lot of reasons that Russia would have won Hillary Clinton to be the president. Now, I'm not trying to defend Russia. I think Putin's terrible. And I think, we can't trust them. But at the same time, we can't vilify them immediately and just assume everything the media is telling us is true, because CNN's been pushing this last few months, this whole fake news narrative, and now they're coming out, they're helping getting stories traction. They're giving stories traction that are fake. That could be fake, and they sound ridiculous. Some of the things in that dossier are ridiculous. And I looked at the comment sections on New York Times or Washington Post or BuzzFeed, and people were like, yep, Trump's compromised, that's what this is, totally bad. And they try to act like they're not leaning that way. New York Times is acting like they're taking a position that's not saying Trump is bad or anything like that. Immediately after BuzzFeed's publication, some reporters volunteered that they too had received copies of the report. Raise your hand if you were too approached with the story. A journalist who has written extensively on Russia wrote on Twitter, adding that she had not reported on the information in the document because it was impossible to verify. Yes, they are explosive. They are entirely unsubstantiated, at least to our knowledge at this stage. The site wrote on Tuesday night. This is writers at the blog Lawfare. For this reason, even now, we are not going to discuss the specific allegations within the document. And this is the thing. Trump was able to go on Twitter and talk about fake news, and it's able to reverse fake news, and this is the irony of the fake news narrative the mainstream media is pushing, is that now the public is associating fake news with the mainstream media. So now people are thinking MSNBC, New York Times, CNN, fake news, fake news, fake news, even if every story isn't fake. It's backfiring on them because now we're more critical of every story. And then I know CNN's acting like they did the right thing here and they defended their actions, but I don't agree with it. I thought this was ridiculous. I think that everyone running with this has made it ridiculous because it's taking away from the real discussion we could be having. and focusing on these ridiculous things and just turning into a meme frenzy with these piss jokes. And it's just pissing everyone off, the year in here. And the weird thing about it is that I think that this is scary in a sense that I think this is going to be a reflection of the next 4 years of Trump's presidency. If he doesn't get impeached, it's going to be them trying to push every scandal or this narrative that Trump is with Russia. There's this cyber security problem, and that the news is pushing this Russia propaganda. I don't know what's real or fake anymore. It's really tough to trust any of these things. I mean, in the comments, you guys can tell me your own conclusions, but for me personally, I don't really know what to believe anymore. I can't trust, Breitbart, and I can't trust, CNN, and I can't trust Fox News entirely either. It's very tough now. You have to look at the sources yourself and I guess make up your own mind. But it's tough because I'd like to just have fact and facts alone. And it's scary because it's like we don't have any facts on anything yet. We're just getting bits of information, and people are using that to really run with these things. But what's bad is that, okay, so New York Times here is trying to act like, they don't want to. They act like it's unprofessional what BuzzFeed did, and it's stupid to, to come to conclusions. CNN said that its journalists have reviewed the full 30-page compilation of memos, the same document later published in full by BuzzFeed, but declined to include some details, saying that the network has not independently corroborated the specific allegations. CNN said its reporters spoke with multiple high-ranking intelligence and government officials before publishing the report. See, they just say that stuff. They say that we've talked to high-ranking intelligence and government officials and stuff. That's all they ever tell us, is that they're talking to people that they know that are in intelligence organizations that want to, want to reveal things about Trump. Clearly, the intelligence community hates Trump. So we're going to be seeing this a lot. This isn't going to stop here. We're going to be seeing a lot of things like this. In a brief interview in the Times newsroom on Tuesday evening, Dean Baquet, I don't know, the executive editor of the Times, said the paper would not publish the document because the allegations were totally unsubstantiated. We, like others, investigated the allegations and haven't corroborated them, and we felt we're not in the business of publishing things we can't stand by. You see, that's the problem, though. Everyone criticized BuzzFeed, but here we go. Here's a New York Times article that came out today, and it says Donald Trump, a modern Manchurian candidate. So even after they criticized BuzzFeed for what they did, and somewhat CNN indirectly, even though everyone's, I think, kind of defending CNN on the left and everyone's attacking CNN on the right, now they're saying in recent days 2 intelligence dossiers have been published making sensational charges involving President-elect Donald Trump and 2016 election. Although they will be lumped together in the public mind, in truth they are as different as chalk and cheese. The first of these reports, published last week, was an unclassified version of a United States intelligence community assessment that concluded with high confidence that President Vladimir Putin and Russia had ordered an influence campaign aimed at the presidential election, and that his goals included damaging Hillary Clinton and electing Mr. Trump. All intelligence contains an element of uncertainty, but this is as good as it gets. A judgment corroborated by the FBI, CIA, and National Security Agency, based on human intelligence, electronic intercepts, and forensic investigation into the hacks of the Democratic National Committee and Democratic Party officials. The second report, dumped on the internet by BuzzFeed News on Tuesday, is a very different animal. As BuzzFeed wrote, the document was prepared for political opponents of Trump by a person who is understood to be a former British intelligence agent. I've heard some rumors his name is James Bond. I don't know, but I've heard that on a few websites. Now identified as Christopher Steele, and its allegations are unverified. If true, the claims in the BuzzFeed dossier are sensational, including extensive contacts between Trump aides and Russian operatives, and the Russian acclamation of dirt on Mr. Trump to be used for blackmail. But are they true? No one knows. This could either be a Watergate-style scandal that engulfs the Trump presidency, or a Hitler Diary-style hoax, or anything in between. It is worrisome that this material was published by BuzzFeed when major news organizations, which are not particularly friendly to Mr. Trump, declined to do so because they could not verify its claims. BuzzFeed made a serious mistake in simply posting all the unverified information online, ignoring the journalistic practice of checking and corroboration. Yes, but you guys are still talking about it, right? You're still pushing this narrative. That's my problem with the media. They're not going to let this die. I think this information is false. I don't think this is true. Now, somebody on 4chan did claim that this was a story that they made up and sent to someone and became a thing, but we have no way of knowing that's true either. But in this world today, it wouldn't be hard to believe that 4chan actually got a story published by BuzzFeed somehow through all these different parties. It's actually not an impossible thing to come to a conclusion to, which is pretty crazy. But here, New York Times says just because the allegations are unproven, however, does not mean they are all false. Well, what does that mean? So what do we just go through and pick and choose what we think is real or not real? All I can tell is that Russia leaked information that showed the DNC was corrupt. I'm not really sure how we're all supposed to be upset about that. Seth Meyers was talking about this, and he was like, oh, I think it's so worrisome and terrible that Trump doesn't care and all this and that. And he was trying to push that the information was true. Every celebrity on Twitter is trying to push that it was true, and the more they normalize it and joke about it and talk about it, the more it will become true. These stories about Trump will become truth to the liberals, and then there'll be no truth anyway, because we'll just keep debating truth over the next 4 years. And then these major news conglomerates like CNN or MSNBC, they may not be here in a decade, or the New York Times in 10 and 15 years. And you may say, oh, well, real journalism will never die. That's true, but real journalism only exists in the sense that, there's a handful of those people out there, and then everyone else is compromised to some level. And we have to accept that when we look at our information and news. I mean, it's just what it is. Mr. Trump himself is doing nothing to dispel suspicions with his hyperbolic attacks and his denials that he has business interests in Russia, when his dealings there go back decades. He accused the intelligence agencies of releasing this fake news to take one last shot at him, and outrageously compared their acts to those of Nazi Germany. Okay, so I don't know. It's tough to talk about here. I don't like this. I don't like New York Times. I don't like Washington Post, who tried to spin that kidnapping of the mentally handicapped kid and beat up by the black people as a narrative to push on the media to make Trumpers happy, because white people feel they're being discriminated against in this country, because they are, because you're vilifying white people. Obama just did a speech, saying goodbye, and it was right before this all happened, and Trump took all the wind out of it. But Obama in that speech talked about how racism wasn't over, and Jim Crow and all that still affects us today, and white people really don't get this yet and can't see. It's so funny it always comes back to the white people, that this whole idea that we're supposed to be united, but then it's still 8 years of Obama, it's still white versus black. It's very upsetting that Obama still comes to that, right? I was hoping that we were done with that whole... It's not that I don't think racism's over, but I also don't like this idea that we have to keep making it the forward of our political conversation, the center of our political conversation, because ultimately it's really just a conversation that's not going to solve itself. I think it has to be solved through time, through natural progression and time. However, it's scaring me because we're still getting the race narrative from the left. It almost feels like the left's so desperate because the media got a big kick in the nuts. Trump was able just to attack them and knock them down, and then now the Democrats don't know what to do, so they're just pushing any kind of story they can, and Trump has to fight this back, but he's not doing a great job, because when Meryl Streep says something, instead of handling it with some class, Trump has to act like Trump. Instead of handling this, he has to attack CNN, which I loved. I love that. I think it's fucking awesome. But at the same time, Trump has to rise above this and show us that he's not going to stoop to their level. I love he's calling the major media conglomerates fake news. I agree with that. I'm sick of their shit. I'm sick of being talked down to by the liberal media, and I'm sick of Obama's administration, which has spent the last 8 years, I think, separating the truth from reality. I think he's directly been part of this separation that we've gotten into. I'm scared of Facebook and YouTube and these companies that are left-leaning banning people that they think are fake news or not real information because it's right-leaning, it's conservative. All of this is very scary. The political climate is very scary right now, and it's hard to support anyone. So I don't know, but this is really shitty because I want to make the jokes too. And I want to talk about the piss stuff, and I want to think that. And I'm scared maybe Trump is in with Russia, but at the same time, everyone's jumping to conclusions that I don't think we're ever going to know the truth. And if we do find out the truth, it might never really happen. But I'm scared about what people say in comment sections. It's like people are 100% certain this is real now, even though it's not verified. And then other people are certain it's completely fake. And this is what we have to do. You have a bias. You have a confirmation bias, and we have to end these biases. The Republican and the Democrat. This is turning into tribalism. We're going back to this tribalist mentality where we're joining in groups and just agreeing with the group like, oh, like monkeys, and it's really bad because that's just going to end all conversation about anything real, and we're going to quit talking about morality and ethics and trade and immigration and the economy, and we're going to make it good versus evil, and your side's good and the other side's evil, no matter what side you're on or what that side's done. And that's scary, because America being tribalist, I really don't want. I think that's a scary future. I think especially with technology and how you can sway one thing or the other, and how some websites and companies have a monopoly on certain markets right now, it's horrifying what the future holds here. And it's horrifying what will happen with this Trump administration if he gets impeached, if Mike Pence takes over, what the Republicans want to do, what the media is going to be doing, what's going to happen here is this could really result in a lot of fighting. And I don't think PC culture is going to take this standing down. And I don't think people like me are going anywhere, or any of the new media, or people who do this stuff on YouTube or on the internet. But at the same time, they could shut my channel down tomorrow and you could never hear from me again. So if this is to be the end of the time of free media and freedom of speech on the internet, and the times that we get to actually look at the truth, which whatever the fuck the truth is today, we all try to find our own version of the truth. I hope that in the future we can drop the political party identity politics shit and actually come together to call everyone out, be it Donald Trump or CNN or BuzzFeed, and we can come together. But that's probably not going to happen. And you know, that's just what it is. Hopefully in 4 years things are better. So let's come together into 2017, and I ask everyone in the comments who may agree with my thoughts or not, or agree with Trump or not, that we all have to work together to call everyone out, and let's try in our little community to be right or practical. Let's be pragmatic. That's all I ask. Let's be pragmatic. So this is the Patriarchy. Like, comment, and subscribe. What are your feelings on this? I'm very interested in hearing, and I will read it. And if I missed any information, please inform me here. But all I can say is that I'm sick of the media. And no matter if they do want to report the truth, it's so hard to take them seriously anymore because of their bullshit.
Asking a question.
Mr.
Don't be rude.
President-elect, can you give us a question?
Don't be
You're
rude.
attacking us. Can you give us a question?
Don't be rude.
Can you
No, I'm
give
not
us a
going to give you
question?
a question. I'm not going to give you a question.
Can you state categorically?
You are fake news.
Sir,
Go ahead.
Can you state